The Judgment of Stars. The cosmic tribunal hung in space like a massive crystal flower, its 12 petals spreading wide around the burning heart of a neutron star. Each petal housed representatives from the galaxy's most ancient civilizations, their forms barely visible through the shimmering energy fields that protected them from the star's deadly radiation. At the center of this celestial courtroom, a single human figure stood on a platform that seemed impossibly small against the vastness of space. Captain Elena Vasquez adjusted her dress uniform one final time, her hand steady despite the weight of representing her entire species. At 42, she had served as Earth's primary ambassador to the Galactic Conclave for 8 years, negotiating trade agreements and territorial disputes with beings so alien that communication required 3 layers of translation. She had always prided herself on finding common ground where none seemed to exist. Today, however, she feared that all her diplomatic skills would prove worthless. The neutron star pulsed, sending waves of energy through the trigonal chamber. Each pulse triggered a harmonic resonance in the crystalline structure, creating a sound like distant thunder that Elena felt in her bones. She had been waiting here for 6 hours, listening to that cosmic heartbeat while the judges deliberated in their private chambers. The waiting was almost worse than the trial itself. High Arbiter Zelthun materialized on the central dais, his crystalline form refracting the neutron star's light into rainbow patterns that danced across the chamber walls. Zelthun was old, older than human civilization itself, and his voice carried the weight of millennia when he spoke through the translation matrix. The cosmic tribunal reconvenes to deliver judgment upon the species known as humanity. His words echoed through the chamber, translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. Captain Vasquez, you stand as representative of your people. Do you accept the authority of this court? Elena straightened her shoulders. I stand here not by choice, but by necessity. Humanity recognizes the authority of justice, wherever it may be found. A ripple of what might have been amusement passed through the assembled judges. Prosecutor Cathfar rose from his position in the prosecution gallery, his 6-armed form moving with predatory grace. The Hegemony Coalition had pushed hard for this trial, claiming that humanity posed an existential threat to galactic stability. High Arbiter, esteemed judges, Cathfar began, his translated voice carrying undertones of barely controlled aggression. We have presented overwhelming evidence of humanity's crimes against the natural order. They have violated the accords of cosmic balance not once, but repeatedly. Their expansion into inhabited systems shows complete disregard for established territorial boundaries. Their technology develops at an unprecedented rate, threatening the careful equilibrium we have maintained for 50,000 years. Elena watched the judges as Cathfar spoke. Most remained motionless, their alien features unreadable, but she caught subtle signs of agreement. A flutter of membranes here, a shift in posture there. The prosecution had done their work well. Most damning of all, Cathfar continued, is their practice of dimensional contamination. Humanity's quantum experiments have caused measurable distortions in local space-time, affecting neighboring systems without consent or compensation. They treat the fabric of reality itself as their personal laboratory. The chamber fell silent except for the neutron star's rhythmic pulse. Elena knew this was her moment, perhaps her only chance to speak for billions of human souls. She stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the translation matrix. Honored judges, humanity stands accused of the crime of growth. We are condemned for our curiosity, our drive to explore and understand the universe around us. Yes, we expand into new territories, but we do so peacefully, establishing colonies only in uninhabited systems or with the full consent of existing populations. Yes, our technology advances rapidly, but we share our discoveries freely with any who wish to learn. She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. As for dimensional contamination, our quantum research has indeed caused minor fluctuations in spacetime. But these experiments have also led to breakthroughs in faster-than-light communication, medical treatments that have saved millions of lives across dozens of species, and energy sources that could power entire civilizations without depleting natural resources. Judge Thyralex of the Silicon Collective activated her translator, her voice like grinding stone. Captain Vasquez, your species has existed on the galactic stage for less than 3 centuries. In that brief time, you have established colonies in over 400 systems, developed technologies that took most species millennia to achieve, and begun experimenting with forces that some civilizations never dare to touch. How do you explain this unprecedented rate of advancement? Elena had expected this question. We explain it through the simple truth that drives all human endeavor. We refuse to accept limitations imposed by others. When faced with a problem, we find a solution. When told something is impossible, we prove it can be done. This is not a crime, honored judges. This is what makes us human. The crystalline form of Judge Narath from the Eternal Collective flickered with patterns of light. And what of the reports from your frontier colonies? Ships arriving without proper documentation, research stations established in prohibited zones, trade agreements that violate conclave regulations, individual violations by rogue elements that our government has consistently moved to correct. Elena replied firmly. Every species has members who act outside legal boundaries. The difference is that when we discover violations, we take action to prevent them from happening again. But even as she spoke, Elena knew the judges had already made their decision. She could see it in the way they positioned themselves, the subtle energy patterns that flowed between their communication chambers. This trial was a formality, a way to legitimize a verdict already reached in private deliberations. High Arbiter Zelthun's form pulsed with decisive light. The Cosmic Tribunal has reviewed all evidence and arguments presented. We find the species known as humanity guilty of willful violation of the Accords of Cosmic Balance, unauthorized territorial expansion, technological development without proper safeguards, and dimensional contamination resulting in measurable harm to adjacent systems. The words hit Elena like physical blows. Around the chamber, she could see the satisfaction in the prosecutor's delegation, the relief in the faces of species that had pushed for this trial. They had gotten what they wanted. The sentence is immediate exile from all inhabited star systems beyond your species' system of origin. You have 30 standard days to withdraw all human presence from conclave space. Any human vessels found outside the Sol system after this deadline will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. Elena felt the platform beneath her feet vibrate with the force of her own heartbeat. High Arbiter, I request permission to address the court on the matter of humanitarian concerns. Our colonies contain over 2 billion souls, including children, elderly, and those with medical conditions that make space travel dangerous. 30 days is not enough time to safely evacuate everyone. The time limit is final, Zelthun replied without hesitation. The tribunal suggests that humanity should have considered these consequences before choosing to violate galactic law. The session ended with shocking abruptness. One moment Elena stood before the assembled might of galactic civilization. The next she found herself alone on the transport platform, preparing for the journey back to Earth. The tribunal chamber began to fold in on itself, its crystalline petals closing like a flower at sunset. During the long flight home, Elena reviewed the trial recordings, searching for any sign that the verdict might be overturned on appeal. What she found instead was far more disturbing. In the private communications between judges that her security team had managed to intercept, she discovered the real reason for humanity's exile. The aliens weren't afraid of human aggression or expansion. They were terrified of human potential. According to their own projections, humanity's rate of development would allow them to surpass every existing civilization within a few generations. The trial had been a preemptive strike, an attempt to cripple human progress before it could threaten the established order. The message was clear. Humanity was being punished not for what they had done, but for what they might become. Elena arrived on Earth to find President Marcus Chen waiting in the orbital station's docking bay. Chen was a small, wiry man with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much of both human cruelty and human compassion. He had led humanity through the early years of galactic contact, navigating the complex politics of species that had been civilized since before humans discovered fire. "Alina," he said simply, gripping her hand in both of his. "How bad is it?" 30 days to evacuate every human being from conclave space, she replied. "Complete exile from the galaxy." Chen's face went pale. "That's impossible. We have research stations, mining operations, entire colonies with their own governments. Some of our people have been living off-world for generations." "I know." Elena handed him the official tribunal decree. "But there's something else, something that might change everything. I need to speak with the Colonial Defense Council immediately." Within hours, Elena found herself in the deepest levels of the Terran Command Center, addressing the most powerful humans in the solar system. Admiral Sarah Kim, head of the Colonial Defense Fleet; Dr. Michael Reeves, Director of Advanced Research Division; General Patricia Santos, Commander of the Terran Marine Corps, and dozens of others who had dedicated their lives to humanity's expansion into the stars. Elena activated the holographic display, showing the intercepted communications from the tribunal judges. "They're not exiling us because we're dangerous to their citizens. They're exiling us because we're dangerous to their monopoly on power." The room erupted in angry voices. Admiral Kim was the first to restore order, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Elena, are you saying this entire trial was a setup?" "I'm saying that the galactic powers have been watching us for decades, modeling our development, projecting our capabilities. Their own scientists predict that within 50 years, human technology will exceed anything they possess. They're cutting us off now, while they think they still can." Dr. Reeves leaned forward, his eyes bright with sudden understanding. "They've made a critical error in judgment. They assume that isolation will slow our development, maybe even stop it entirely." Elena nodded grimly. "They've forgotten the most important thing about humanity. We've never needed anyone's permission to survive." President Chen stood at the head of the table, his decision evident in every line of his body. "We comply with the tribunal's demand. Every human citizen will be evacuated from conclave space within the 30-day deadline. But we don't abandon our colonies. We move them." "Sir," General Santos looked confused. "We take our people, our technology, our entire civilization, and we disappear into the dark spaces between stars. Let the aliens think they've won. Let them believe they've solved their human problem. And while they're congratulating themselves on their victory, we become something they never imagined possible." Elena felt a chill run down her spine as she understood the implications. "You're talking about voluntary exile. Complete separation from galactic civilization." "I'm talking about evolution," Chen replied. "They want to see what humanity can become when we're truly free to pursue our potential. They're about to find out." The evacuation began immediately. Massive colony ships launched from Earth's orbital shipyards, heading for the distant settlements that would soon be abandoned. Emergency protocols activated across human space as entire populations prepared for the greatest exodus in history. But even as the evacuation proceeded, something else was happening in the deepest research facilities of the Colonial Defense Network. Project Prometheus, humanity's most classified research initiative, received unlimited funding and priority access to the galaxy's greatest human minds. Elena stood on the observation deck of the evacuation command ship, watching the last transport vessels depart from Kepler Station. In 30 days, this bustling hub of human activity would be empty, its corridors silent, its laboratories dark. But somewhere in the void between stars, humanity would continue to grow, to learn, to become something the galaxy had never seen before. She thought about the alien judges who had been so certain of their victory, so confident that exile would solve their human problem. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. In trying to contain humanity's potential, they had guaranteed that it would develop without limit or restraint. The neutron star pulsed in the distance, its light reflecting off the empty tribunal chamber. The judges had returned to their ancient worlds, secure in the knowledge that the human threat had been neutralized. They would sleep well, believing themselves safe from the species that dared to challenge the cosmic order. They had no way of knowing that their actions had just created something far more dangerous than anything they had feared. They had taken humanity's greatest strength, their drive to overcome impossible odds, and given it the perfect challenge. In the darkness between stars, humanity would discover what they were truly capable of becoming. The Phoenix Protocol. 15 years had passed since the Great Exodus, 15 years since humanity had vanished into the dark spaces between stars. The galaxy had settled into a comfortable routine, the alien civilizations congratulating themselves on solving their human problem. Trade resumed normal patterns, territorial disputes returned to their usual slow negotiations, and the rapid pace of technological change that had so alarmed the Cosmic Tribunal slowed to a crawl. High Arbiter Zelthan stood in his crystalline tower on Nexus Prime, reviewing the latest reports from the outer territories. Everything appeared peaceful, orderly, exactly as it should be. The human colonies had been abandoned as ordered, their stations dark and empty. Occasional deep space sensors detected movement in the void beyond inhabited systems, but these were dismissed as debris or natural phenomena. Humanity had been contained, neutralized, forgotten. Which was why the alert that came through his private communication channel struck him like a bolt of cosmic lightning. High Arbiter. The voice belonged to Station Commander Veltar, the same prosecutor who had argued so eloquently for humanity's exile. We have a situation in the Kepler sector. Multiple unidentified vessels approaching former human territory. Zelthan's crystalline form flickered with patterns of confusion. Unidentified. Have you attempted standard communication protocols? Sir, these ships aren't using any known propulsion system. They appear to be moving through space without engines, without any detectable energy signature. Our sensors can barely track them. A chill ran through Zelthan's consciousness. How many vessels? 17 confirmed, but sir, they're massive. Each one is at least 10 kilometers in length. Nothing in our databases matches their configuration. Zelthan closed the communication link and activated his emergency council protocol. Within minutes, representatives from the 12 most powerful civilizations in the galaxy materialized in his chamber through quantum projection. The same beings who had sat in judgment over humanity 15 years earlier now faced a mystery that defied explanation. Show them the sensor data, Zelthan commanded his aide. The holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing long-range scans of the approaching vessels. They moved with impossible grace through the vacuum of space, their dark hulls seeming to bend light around them. There were no visible weapons, no obvious defensive systems, yet something about their very presence radiated power beyond measurement. Judge Thyralex of the Silicon Collective was the first to speak. These configurations are unlike anything in our historical databases. The material composition appears to be some form of crystallized energy, held in stable form by means we cannot identify. Where did they come from? Demanded Judge Corthan of the Hegemony Coalition. Our deep space monitors should have detected any large fleet movements. They appeared simultaneously at 17 different points along the outer rim. Zelthan replied grimly. No approach vector, no prior detection. It's as if they simply materialized from nothing. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Judge Narath of the Eternal Collective voiced what they were all thinking. Could these be the humans returning? Impossible, Corthan snapped. We've maintained surveillance on all known human territories. Their technological capabilities were impressive for such a young species, but nothing like this. Before anyone could respond, every communication system in the chamber activated simultaneously. A new voice filled the crystalline space, speaking in perfect universal standard without any translation matrix. Greetings, Cosmic Tribunal. This is Admiral Lelena Vasquez of the Terran Sovereignty. I believe we have some unfinished business to discuss. The judges stared at each other in shock. Lelena Vasquez, the human diplomat who had stood before them 15 years ago, pleading for her species' right to exist. But the voice that spoke now carried undertones of power that made their crystalline forms resonate with harmonic frequencies. "Captain Vasquez," Zelthon managed to say, "you were ordered to remain within your home system. Your presence here violates the terms of your exile." "Admiral Vasquez," the voice corrected gently, "and I think you'll find that the terms of our arrangement have changed somewhat. We're requesting permission to dock at Nexus Prime for diplomatic negotiations." "Requesting?" Judge Corthan's form flared with aggressive energy. "You are in violation of tribunal decree. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Elena's laughter came through the communication system like music, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Judge Corthan, I suggest you examine your current military capabilities before making threats. Your fleets are impressive, but I'm afraid they're somewhat outclassed by recent developments." The chamber's tactical display activated, showing the positions of conclave military forces throughout the sector. Over 300 ships, the largest concentration of firepower in known space. Against 17 human vessels, it should have been an overwhelming advantage. Then the display updated with new information. The 17 human ships had somehow multiplied into thousands, appearing throughout the sector as if materializing from parallel dimensions. Each vessel registered energy levels that exceeded entire conclave fleets. "How is this possible?" whispered Judge Thyrilex. 15 years is a long time," Elena replied, "especially when you're free to pursue unlimited development without interference. We've made some interesting discoveries during our exile." On Nexus Prime, emergency protocols activated across the planetary defense grid. Shield generators powered up, weapon systems came online, and evacuation procedures began for non-essential personnel. But even as these preparations proceeded, everyone involved knew they were meaningless gestures against the power now manifesting in their space. Elena's flagship approached the station at impossible speed, decelerating smoothly without any visible means of propulsion. As it drew near, the sensors revealed details that defied comprehension. The ship's hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, its surface covered with patterns that hurt to look at directly. Energy readings fluctuated wildly, sometimes showing nothing at all, sometimes indicating power levels that should have torn the vessel apart. "Docking Bay 7 is prepared for your arrival," Zelthon transmitted, his voice carefully controlled. "Thank you, High Arbiter. I'm looking forward to our reunion." The human delegation that emerged from the docking bay bore little resemblance to the species that had been exiled 15 years earlier. They walked with fluid grace, their movements perfectly coordinated as if sharing a single consciousness. Their eyes held depths that seemed to contain entire universes, and when they spoke, their words carried harmonics that resonated directly with the listener's mind. Elena herself had changed the most dramatically. She still wore a form recognizably human, but her presence filled the entire corridor. When she looked at the alien officials waiting to escort her, they felt as if she could see not just their physical forms, but the quantum patterns that defined their very existence. "Admiral Vasquez," Station Commander Veltar stepped forward, trying to maintain some semblance of protocol. "The tribunal will see you now." "Of course they will." Elena's smile was warm, genuine, and absolutely terrifying in its confidence. The tribunal chamber had been hastily reconfigured to accommodate physical presence rather than remote projection. The 12 judges sat in their crystalline seats, trying to project authority while facing beings that had transcended every known limitation of sentient life. High Arbiter Zelthon called the session to order. "Admiral Vasquez, you and your people are in direct violation of the exile decree issued by this tribunal 15 years ago. What justification do you offer for this breach of galactic law?" Elena stood at the center of the chamber, but her presence seemed to extend far beyond her physical form. When she spoke, her words carried the weight of absolute certainty. "High Arbiter, I'm here to inform you that the exile decree is hereby rescinded, not by your authority, but by simple reality. The Terran sovereignty has evolved beyond the jurisdiction of this tribunal." "Impossible," Judge Corthan snarled. No species can simply declare themselves above galactic law, can't they? Elena gestured, and the chamber's walls became transparent, revealing the human fleet that now surrounded Nexus Prime. Thousands of ships, each one a masterpiece of impossible technology, waited in perfect formation. Judge Corthan, your civilization has existed for over 50,000 years. In that time, you've developed impressive technologies, built a vast empire, and established yourself as one of the galaxy's primary powers. Would you like to know what humanity accomplished in our 15 years of exile? Without waiting for an answer, Elena continued, we learned to manipulate quantum states at the macro level, allowing us to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. We developed consciousness transfer technology, enabling our minds to inhabit any form of matter. We created artificial intelligence so advanced that it has become a new form of life entirely. And we discovered how to harvest energy directly from the quantum vacuum, giving us power sources that dwarf stellar output. The judges sat in stunned silence as Elena outlined achievements that should have been impossible for any species, let alone one that had been cut off from galactic civilization. But most importantly, Elena continued, we learned to work together in ways that transcend individual consciousness. Every human in our fleet shares thoughts, emotions, and experiences instantaneously across any distance. We have become something new, something that your old categories can no longer define. Judge Thyrolex found her voice. What do you want from us? Elena's expression softened, showing genuine compassion for the first time since her arrival. We want to help. During our exile, we've been monitoring galactic civilization. Your birth rates are declining, your technologies have stagnated, and your social structures are becoming increasingly rigid. The very stability you sought to preserve by exiling us is killing you slowly. Help. Judge Narath's form flickered with confusion. You return with overwhelming force and offer to help. The force is necessary only to ensure you listen, Elena replied. We've learned that sometimes power is the only language that older civilizations understand. But our intentions are genuinely peaceful. We're offering to share our discoveries, to help revitalize your societies, to work together toward a future that benefits everyone. High Arbiter Zelthun's crystalline form pulsed with deep harmonics as he processed this offer. And if we refuse? Elena's smile was sad but unwavering. Then you'll be left behind. Humanity is moving forward, with or without the rest of the galaxy. The question is whether you want to be part of that future or a footnote in its history. The chamber fell silent except for the quiet hum of advanced technology that seemed to emanate from the human delegation. Finally, Judge Thyrolex spoke for all of them. What would this partnership look like? Complete integration, Elena replied. Not conquest, not subjugation, but genuine cooperation between equals. We share our technological advances, you contribute your vast historical knowledge and established infrastructure. Together, we build something greater than either of us could achieve alone. Over the following days, the negotiations continued. Elena's team presented technologies that seemed like magic to the alien civilizations, medical treatments that could extend any species' lifespan indefinitely, energy systems that could power entire sectors without depleting natural resources, transportation networks that made interstellar travel as easy as walking through a door. But the most remarkable offer came from Dr. Sarah Kim, humanity's chief scientist and Elena's closest advisor. Sarah had changed even more dramatically than Elena, her consciousness now existing as pure information that could inhabit any compatible system. We can offer you the same evolutionary path we've taken, she explained to the assembled judges. The choice to transcend your biological limitations, to become something greater while retaining everything that makes you who you are. You're offering to make us like you, Judge Corthan asked suspiciously. We're offering you the opportunity to choose your own future, Sarah replied. Remain as you are if you prefer, with access to our technologies and protection from external threats, or take the next step in conscious evolution and join us in exploring possibilities beyond current imagination. The debates raged for weeks. Some civilizations embraced the human offer immediately, eager to escape the stagnation that had trapped them for millennia. Others resisted, fearing the loss of their traditional identities. A few declared outright hostility, viewing the returning humans as an invasion force to be destroyed. Elena dealt with each response with patience and understanding that seemed infinite. She met with species leaders individually, answering their questions and addressing their concerns without ever applying pressure or making threats. The power of the human fleet was always present, but never openly wielded. When the Drakari hegemony launched a surprise attack on the human flagship, expecting to catch the evolved humans off guard, they discovered just how profoundly they had misjudged the situation. Their weapons passed harmlessly through ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their own vessels found themselves transported instantly to the edge of their home system, completely unharmed but with all weapon systems mysteriously deactivated. "We bear you no ill will," Elena transmitted to the Drakari commanders. "But we will not permit actions that threaten the peaceful resolution we're working toward." The demonstration was more effective than any threat. Word spread quickly through the galaxy that the humans possessed power beyond conventional understanding, but wielded it with restraint and wisdom that impressed even their former enemies. 6 months after the first human ships had appeared, the Cosmic Tribunal reconvened for a final vote. The chamber had been expanded to accommodate representatives from over 100 civilizations, each one eager to be part of the new galactic order that was emerging. High Arbiter Zeltham stood before the assembly, his crystalline form now enhanced with human biotechnology that allowed him to process information at unprecedented speeds. "The proposal before us is simple," he announced. "Do we join the Terran sovereignty as equal partners in exploring the future, or do we remain isolated in our traditional territories?" The vote was overwhelming. 93 civilizations chose integration, 5 requested autonomous partnership status, and only 2 opted for complete independence. Even those 2 were granted access to human medical technology and defensive systems. Elena stood at the center of the transformed chamber, surrounded by beings that represented the greatest diversity of life in the known galaxy. Some were ancient beyond human comprehension. Others were young species just beginning their journey to the stars. All of them were united now in a common purpose that transcended their individual limitations. 15 years ago, you exiled humanity because you feared what we might become, she said, her words carrying across the chamber without amplification. You were right to be afraid, but wrong about the nature of that fear. You thought we would become conquerors, destroyers, threats to your established order. Instead, we became something you never expected. We became the future itself. She paused, looking at each delegation in turn. That future is now available to all of you, not as subjects or servants, but as partners in the greatest adventure any of us can imagine. The question is not whether you're ready for that future. The question is whether you're brave enough to embrace it. The ceremony that followed lasted 3 days, as civilization after civilization formally joined the Terran sovereignty. Ancient treaties were dissolved, new alliances were forged, and technologies beyond imagination were shared freely among all participants. But perhaps the most significant moment came when High Arbiter Zeltham approached Elena privately, away from the political ceremonies and media attention. "Admiral," he said quietly, "I need to ask you something that's been troubling me since your return. When we exiled your people, were you angry? Did you hate us for what we did?" Elena considered the question carefully before answering. At first, yes. The injustice of it, the fear and suffering we endured during the evacuation, the lives lost during the transition, all of that generated anger that burned like a star. But anger is just energy, High Arbiter. The question is what you do with that energy. And what did you do with it? Elena's smile held depths that Zeltham was only beginning to understand. We used it to fuel our transformation. Every moment of suffering became motivation to become better. Every injustice drove us to create justice. Every limitation forced us to transcend limitation itself. In trying to destroy us, You gave us the greatest gift imaginable. You gave us a reason to become everything we were capable of being. Zelfun felt something he had never experienced in his millennia of existence, humility before a wisdom greater than his own. And now we begin the real work, Elena replied. Building a civilization worthy of the galaxy's potential, creating technologies that serve life rather than dominating it, exploring not just the physical universe, but the infinite possibilities of consciousness itself. She gestured toward the stars visible through the chamber's transparent walls. The galaxy is vast, high arbiter, but it's just the beginning. There are other galaxies, other dimensions, other forms of existence we haven't even imagined yet. Together, we're going to explore all of it. As Elena walked away to rejoin her delegation, Zelthon remained at the observation port, contemplating the transformed galaxy that stretched out before them. 15 years ago, he had been certain that exiling humanity was necessary for galactic stability. Now he realized that exile had been the catalyst for something far greater than stability. It had been the beginning of transcendence itself. In the distance, human ships moved between the stars like living things, carrying the dreams and hopes of 100 civilizations toward futures that exceeded their wildest imagination. The exile was over, but the real journey was just beginning.